There are big changes coming in real estate and how compensation works. And if you are looking to transact in the real estate market as a buyer or a seller in the nearby future, this could be really impactful for you. Let's dive into it. Over the last year, in the background, there has been a lawsuit going on between the National Association of Realtors and a conglomerate of home sellers. The home sellers were upset because they felt like there wasn't transparency in how the commissions worked in the process of selling their home. A settlement was reached, and some major changes are coming. The initial changes take effect in August of 2024, and then the rules and laws technically change in January. The purpose of changing some of the things now is to shake it out and see how it all plays out, to make sure that the intentions of the settlement actually work the way that they wanted them to in practice. So, since most of us don't know how real estate compensation worked in the first place, let's look at some history. Back in the early 1990s, if you were looking to purchase a home, you would call the listing agent. That listing agent would show you the home. And if this home was found to be the one you wanted to purchase, that listing agent would write your contracts and present them to the seller. Now, the listing agent had a fiduciary duty to their seller. They were strictly acting on your behalf to present your offer. Well, that kind of led to a lawsuit, because it was found that those buyers weren't getting the proper advice and direction in the way that they were purchasing their home. So that's when buyers brokers were created. But how do we make sure they get paid? In that settlement, it was decided that they didn't want to create an additional barrier to home ownership where people had to bring an additional fee to pay their buyer's broker. And because there's a ton of rules and regulations in lending, adding it on after the fact just wasn't going to work. So they created an attachment between the listing agent's compensation and the buyer's broker's compensation. Before these more recent changes, the way I would present a listing was, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I charge is this percentage. In that percentage, there are two buckets. One percentage is this amount, and that goes to pay me, which gives me payment for these items that I do for you. In the other bucket is this percentage for a buyer's broker for their cooperation in the transaction. And that's how it's been for decades now. Listing agents would list the house. There's a little line in the multiple listing system that tells a buyer's broker how much that compensation will be. And we go from there. So what are the changes? First of all, they're removing that little line from the multiple listing service. One of the large reasons for this is because there is this speculation that buyer's brokers were shopping that compensation number and only showing houses to their clients that offered the highest compensation. The additional change is we are separating compensation for the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So how does it work now? From the seller's side, when I come to your house and we're talking about a listing, I'm going to say, I charge X amount for my services. And we have that conversation as to what I provide for that amount. And then we have a separate conversation. So far as buyer's agency, here's the laundry list of ways that we can approach this. You can offer a set broker's fee up front. You can not set a broker's fee, but willing to look at and consider offers that include it as a concession. Or you can even say, you know what? I'm not paying that broker's fee. I don't want to pay for them. And I'm going to set that at 0. From the buyer's side, you now have paperwork to do before a buyer's agent can walk you into a house. It's actually supposed to be before they do any services for you. We'll see how this shakes out in the details of the terminology. So before they show you a house, they're going to say, hey, I need you to sign a contract. And they're going to have you commit to a compensation. So as a buyer's agent, this is how I approach it now. I'd love to show you that house. We just met. I don't know you from anywhere. So here's what I'm going to do. I charge this amount. But and because I have to, with these new rules, have a contract with you, we're going to sign a contract for a single showing, a single day, a single county, something that's not broad sweeping. And then we're going to sit down after our showing and have a consultation, and we'll have a deeper conversation about it. I have done this historically and it's not been an issue. But the reality is now that buyer's agent pay is separate from the listing. That buyer has committed to pay a percentage to their broker up front. So now we run into that barrier conversation. The truth of the matter is that on the back end, this can still be worked into the contract with the seller. It just becomes a negotiable line item. Even if that seller isn't offering a set compensation up front, say you have signed a contract with your buyer's agent to pay them 2.5%, and you're writing on an offer on a house that's $700,000. You include that as a concession from the seller in the contract. Lending rules have changed so that you can include compensation for your broker separate from additional compensation for other things like closing costs. This is a disconnection of these two. And in my opinion, it actually creates an opportunity for buyers and sellers to negotiate to get their best terms and deal in the end. There's a lot of fear in my industry around this. I've been in meetings for weeks now, and people are really freaking out. But in my opinion, this isn't a massive change of how business is done. If we just move forward with confidence, knowing that if you're writing a good offer on a house, there is room to negotiate and ensure that your broker's compensation is included. As agents, we have value. And if your broker's not showing you their value, you don't think they're worth the amount that they ask you to pay them, hire another one who is worth it, or negotiate that compensation, because all compensations are negotiable. All right. I hope this is helpful as we're stepping into this new season in my local market. I am recording this on August 2nd. Our MLS changes are made on August 7th. I know some are the 15th. Officially, it's the 17th, but we're going to see this. And because we're going to see this, some of the ways of doing business are going to be a little sticky for a while. So don't get frustrated. Keep your head up. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm always here to help.